Welcome to spring!
Hello and welcome to Canguro English. I'm Christian, and today we are going to be talking about word order. So before I start this class, I want to play a little game with you. Have a look at this sentence. She told him that she loved him. Now, there is a word in English that we can put in any position in this sentence. We can put it here at the beginning, or here, or here, or here, in any position. Do you know what that word is? Only. Only is a very special word because we can put it anywhere in this sentence and it slightly changes the meaning. Only she told him that she loved him. She only told him that she loved him. She told him that only she loved him, etc. So you can see that word order is not a simple set of rules. Word order is something much more beautiful and subtle and nuanced. And that is what we are going to be talking about today. One more thing before we start. We need to talk about this. Let me show you how I feel about this. Now we can start class. Every language in the world has a preferred order for the different grammatical parts. And English is an SVO language, which means that we prefer to have the subject and then the verb and then the object. But before we can talk more about the order, let's understand exactly what the subject and the verb and the object are. So we're going to start with the verb, okay? Because without the verb, there is nothing. The verb is the most important thing in a clause, okay? A verb is a word that describes an action or an occurrence or a state of being, okay? This is a verb. And then we have the subject and the object. And in a way, these are both very closely related because they are related to the verb. The subject is the person or the thing performing the action of the verb. And the object is the person or the thing which is affected by the verb. So we could say that the subject and object are very similar. It just depends which one you think is more important. Now, a clause can contain more than one subject and more than one object. For example, I gave Maria a pizza. So here we have a single subject, I, okay? Then we have the verb give, okay, here. But here we have two objects, okay? We have an indirect object and we have a direct object. How do we know the difference? Well, we look at the verb give and we say, what are we giving? Are we giving Maria? No, we are giving a pizza. So, because the verb give relates to the pizza, not to Maria, then the pizza is the direct object. And Maria is receiving the pizza. So she is the indirect object. Here in this sentence, you can see that we have two subjects. Me and Paco gave Maria a pizza. Okay, so sometimes clauses can have more than one subject, more than one object, and of course also more than one verb. So now we know that English is subject, verb, object, and we understand the concepts of the subject and the direct object, indirect object, etc. Now let's talk about situations where it's obligatory to break the SVO rule. Okay? So, for example, in questions, when we make questions in English, we use inversion, okay? And this inversion breaks the SVO rule. Also, when you transform from active to passive, we are moving what was the object into the subject position, okay? It appears to break this rule, the SVO rule. And finally, as well, in imperatives, eat your pizza, okay? I'm breaking this strict rule. But these are obligatory situations. Now, let's talk about why and when you would deliberately break the SVO rule. When we communicate in a language, whether it's writing an email or speaking on the telephone or having a conversation, our objective is to convey meaning. And we can convey meaning in various different ways, with punctuation, with our choice of words, with gestures, with the tone of voice. But another really important way to convey meaning is with our information structure, okay? The way that we structure our sentences can help us to give additional meaning or to change the meaning of sentences. When you structure your sentences in English, there are three important things to consider. The first one is the principle of given before new, which means that in general, we prefer to put old information, things that we know about, before new information. Okay? The second thing is end weight. If we have a group of words that's very complex, or a concept that's very dense, then we prefer to put this at the end, so it's easier to process. And the third thing is, of course, to highlight information. When we deliberately change the structure, the order of words in English, this is called hyperbaton. And I'm going to be showing you some examples of all three of these concepts. First, let's talk about preposing. Preposing is when we take something that is normally in the middle or the end of a sentence and we put it at the beginning. We change the standard word order completely. And when we move something to the beginning of a sentence in English, we are giving it extra emphasis, extra focus. For example, here is our original sentence, okay? He removed the lid carefully. Subject, verb, object. But we can change the order to give more focus to something else. Carefully, he removed the lid. In this sentence, our focus is on the idea of he took it carefully, on the adverb. Here, and this is a very radical change, we have the object at the beginning. The lid he removed carefully. So our focus is on the lid. And finally, removing the lid carefully. Here, when we use the verb at the beginning of the sentence, we are focusing on the action of removing. Now let's talk about postposing. Postposing is when we move something to the end of a sentence. And the first reason that we use postposing can be to create a dramatic effect, okay? To create a build of suspense. So our original would be a big wolf, subject, came, okay, verb, through the door, okay? And what we're going to do now is we're going to put our phrase here at the beginning, through the door, our prepositional phrase, and then we're going to have verb and then subject. So do you see the suspense? Through the door came a big wolf. It changes the meaning, the way that I present this information to you. Another reason we use postposing is to help the listener or the reader process the information more easily. So, do you remember I talked about end weight? If a concept or a sentence is very heavy, we put it at the end. Look at this example. My English classes give students, teachers, parents, children, travelers and professionals help. So the verb give and giving help, they are very isolated. There's a lot of words in between give and help. So maybe when I'm reading, I lose the connection between give and help. So I can move this here and I put the heavy part of the sentence, okay? I put this heavy part at the end. My English classes give help to students, teachers, parents, children, travelers and professionals. It's much easier to process. The next thing we're going to talk about is the cleft sentence. This is another structure we can use to highlight important information. So imagine that we are talking and you say to me, Christian, yesterday you met my dad. Did you like my dad? Did you get on with my dad? And I say, no, I didn't meet your dad. I met your sister. Okay? So this is the typical subject, verb, object, I met your sister. But we can change the structure to highlight the mistake, the misunderstanding. And we can do this using it or the what words, who, why, when, where, etc. Okay? So, it was your sister I met. So, here we are bringing this information to the front to give it the extra emphasis. And again here, the who is of course your sister. Who I met was your sister. So these types of cleft sentences can help us to portray more subtle meaning when we're speaking. Another way that we can bring focus onto something is by using thing, like the thing, something, one thing. Okay? For example, I love the pizza in Italy. So here you can see that psychologically we are focused on the idea that I love something, okay? But look at this sentence. The thing I love in Italy is the pizza. So the thing, of course, is the pizza. But because I'm bringing it to the front, I'm really focusing more on the pizza than me and what I love. So I wanted to show you today that, yes, English has a preferred word order, subject, verb, object. But it is absolutely possible to break this order, to create a special effect. And you shouldn't be afraid to experiment with trying different word orders. But be careful, okay? Don't use it all the time, because then people will think that you are just making mistakes. But you can definitely use it to create emphasis and to create interest and variation when you are speaking or writing. Well, I hope that you found that class interesting. And I hope that now you feel much more confident about your word order in English. If you would like to see any more videos about the English language, then don't forget to subscribe. I'm Christian, this is Canguro English. I'll see you in class.